Welcome to How to Divorce in Custody in California. If you're facing divorce, a child custody dispute, or have questions about California family law, you're in the right place. In this show, attorney Vince Davis and Ms. G break down the legal process into clear, practical steps you can understand. We'll explain your rights, answer common questions, and share strategies that can help you make informed decisions during one of the most important times in your life. And now, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Family Law Show. I'm attorney Vincent W. Davis. Thank you for joining us again. If you've been following our series, we've already talked about child support and child custody. Today's topic naturally builds on those discussions because it's a question many parents eventually face. What happens when one parent wants to move? Can they take the child with them? Does the other parent have a say? These situations can become emotionally difficult because they involve balancing a parent's opportunity to relocate with the child's relationship with both parents. As always, today's discussion is for educational purposes only. Every family's circumstances are unique, and nothing we discuss today creates an attorney-client relationship or should be considered legal advice for your particular situation.
Hi, Attorney Davis. So after our custody episode, I wasn't surprised by the number of questions we received about moving. Some people wanted to move because they were offered a better job. Others wanted to move closer to grandparents who could help with childcare. One viewer even said their fiance lives in another state and they're planning to get married. Almost everyone asked the same question. Can I just move with my child?
That's one of the most common questions family law attorneys receive. And the answer isn't always simple. Whether a parent can relocate with a child depends on several legal and factual considerations. It's not something that can be answered with a simple yes or no.
Okay, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a move-away case?
A move-away case generally involves a situation where one parent wants to relocate with a child in a way that could significantly affect the other parent's parenting time or relationship with the child. Sometimes the proposed move is to another city. Sometimes it's to another county. Sometimes it's to another state. The greater the impact on the existing parenting arrangement, the more likely the move will require careful legal consideration.
So it isn't only moving across the country.
Correct. Even a move within California can raise important issues if it substantially changes the child's routine or makes parenting time much more difficult.
One thing I noticed in the viewer comments was that many parents said, I'm the mother, or I'm the father. It's my child, so I should be able to live wherever I want. How do courts generally look at that?
Parents certainly have important rights, but when custody orders exist, courts also consider how a move may affect the child's relationship with both parents. The focus generally remains on the child's best interests rather than simply the wishes of either parent.
So the issue isn't just what one parent wants.
Exactly. The court considers how the proposed move could affect the child as a whole.
Let's talk about some of the reasons parents want to relocate. Because I think viewers sometimes assume people move simply to keep the child away from the other parent. But there are many legitimate reasons, aren't there?
Absolutely. A parent may receive a promotion or a new job opportunity. They may need to move because of military service. They may want to be closer to extended family who can provide child care and emotional support. Some people remarry and want to join their new spouse. Others face financial circumstances that make relocation necessary. Every family situation is different.
So courts don't automatically assume bad intentions?
No, courts generally examine the facts of each individual case.
Does the child's age make any difference? For example, would a move affect a 2-year-old differently than a 15-year-old?
Children's developmental needs can vary depending on their age. A very young child may have different needs than a teenager involved in school, sports, friendships, and community activities. Those practical realities can become part of the overall analysis. Again, every case is unique.
I hadn't thought about that. a teenager who's involved in sports and school clubs may be affected differently than a preschooler.
That's one example of why move away cases can be so fact specific.
Now, here's the best case scenario. Suppose both parents agree. One parent receives a great job offer. The other parent says, "I'll miss my child, but I understand." If everyone agrees, does that make things easier?
When parents are able to communicate and reach agreements regarding their children, that can often reduce conflict. However, it's still important to ensure that any agreements comply with applicable legal requirements and appropriately address parenting schedules, transportation, holidays, communication, and other important issues. Carefully planning ahead can help avoid misunderstandings later.
So even if everyone gets along, they should think through the details.
Exactly. Questions like holiday schedules, school breaks, transportation arrangements, and regular communication become especially important when parents live farther apart.
But of course, that's probably not what happens most of the time. What if one parent says, "Absolutely not, you're not taking my child"?
That's when these matters often become more complicated. When parents cannot reach an agreement, the legal process may become necessary to resolve the dispute. Rather than making decisions based solely on emotion, the court examines the evidence, the circumstances, and the applicable California law. The goal is to determine what arrangement serves the child's best interests under the facts presented.
I imagine these cases can become very emotional.
They often do. Parents are not only making decisions about where they will live, they're making decisions that may affect their child's daily life, education, friendships, and relationship with the other parent. Those are significant issues. So, those are excellent questions. Let's spend the next part discussing the factors courts generally consider and some of the misunderstandings that often arise in move away cases.
Attorney Davis, let's say the parents can't reach an agreement. One parent wants to relocate, the other parent objects. How does a judge begin looking at a case like that?
Every family is unique, so courts don't use a simple checklist where one answer automatically determines the outcome. Instead, judges generally examine the circumstances presented by both parents and consider how the proposed move may affect the child's overall well-being. The court's focus remains on the child's best interests. That has been the theme throughout our family law series because it applies in so many custody-related matters.
So the judge isn't deciding who deserves to win an argument.
Exactly. The purpose isn't to declare one parent the winner and the other the loser. The purpose is to determine what arrangement best serves the child under the circumstances.
I saw this question several times from viewers. People asked, if I move, does that automatically mean I'll lose custody?
No, there's no automatic rule that says moving means a parent loses custody. Likewise, there's no automatic rule that says a parent may relocate whenever they choose, regardless of existing custody arrangements. These cases are fact specific. The court evaluates the circumstances presented.
So once again, there's no simple yes or no answer.
That's correct. Family law often requires careful analysis rather than broad assumptions.
When people think about moving, they usually think about houses or jobs. But children have entire lives where they currently live. School, friends, sports, neighbors. Do those things matter?
They certainly can. Children often develop important relationships through school, extracurricular activities, extended family, and their community. A proposed move may affect those relationships. Courts generally consider how changes in a child's environment could affect that child's overall circumstances. Again, every family is different.
I think adults sometimes underestimate how attached children become to their routines.
Routine provides stability. Children often benefit from consistency, especially during periods of family transition.
Let's talk about grandparents for a moment. Suppose a parent wants to move closer to grandparents because they can help with childcare. Does that become part of the discussion?
Extended family can play an important role in many children's lives. For some families, grandparents provide childcare while parents work. For others, they offer emotional support, transportation, or simply an important family connection. Those are among the many facts that may become relevant depending on the circumstances.
I think that's especially true today because many families rely on grandparents for help.
That's certainly true for many households. Every family support system looks a little different.
We also had a question from someone whose spouse is in the military. Military families sometimes have to move unexpectedly. How does that affect these situations?
Military families often face unique challenges because relocations may be required as part of military service. Those circumstances can present additional legal and practical issues. As with other move away matters, courts generally evaluate the facts presented and consider the child's best interests.
So even though military families face special circumstances, the court is still looking at the child's situation.
Exactly. The child's welfare remains central to the court's analysis.
Here's another common situation. A parent is offered a job that pays significantly more money. Maybe it's in Northern California. Maybe it's in another state. Financially, the move makes perfect sense. Does a better job automatically justify relocating?
Employment opportunities can certainly be an important consideration for many families. A higher paying job may improve financial stability. It may provide better housing or educational opportunities. But employment is only one part of a much larger picture. The court generally considers numerous factors rather than focusing on a single issue.
So better income alone doesn't automatically answer the question.
Correct. Family law rarely turns on one fact by itself.
Let's say the move is approved. Obviously, the parents can't continue exchanging the child every weekend if they're living hundreds of miles apart. How do families usually deal with that?
Distance often requires creative parenting schedules. Instead of frequent short visits, parents may arrange longer periods during school breaks, holidays, or summer vacation. Technology can also help families stay connected through scheduled video calls and other forms of communication. The important thing is developing a parenting plan that reflects the realities of the family's new circumstances.
That's interesting. The schedule changes, but the goal of maintaining the parent-child relationship remains the same.
Exactly. Relocation changes logistics. It doesn't eliminate the importance of maintaining healthy family relationships whenever appropriate.
Here's something I think people may accidentally do. They get excited about a new opportunity. They start packing. They enroll the child in another school. Maybe they even sign a lease before everything is resolved. Is that something parents should be careful about?
Major decisions involving children deserve careful planning. Before making commitments that affect custody arrangements, parents should fully understand the legal implications of those decisions. Moving first and addressing legal questions later can create unnecessary complications. Planning ahead is almost always preferable.
That sounds like practical advice. Think first, plan carefully, then move forward.
Exactly. Thoughtful planning often prevents misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict.
Attorney Davis, we've covered why parents relocate, how courts generally evaluate these situations, and some of the practical challenges families face. But before we finish today's program, I'd like to talk about the biggest mistakes parents make in move-away cases, how they can prepare for court if necessary, and your advice for someone who's just beginning this process.
Those are excellent questions. Let's spend the rest of our time discussing practical advice that may help parents approach these situations more thoughtfully and keep the focus where it belongs, on the child's best interests.
Attorney Davis, throughout your years practicing family law, you've probably seen move-away cases handled well and others that became much more difficult than they needed to be. Without discussing any specific clients, what are some of the biggest mistakes parents make?
One of the biggest mistakes is allowing emotions to control every decision. When parents are facing a major life change, it's understandable that emotions run high, but decisions involving children should be made thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Another common mistake is assuming that because a move makes sense for the parent, it automatically makes sense for the child. Those are not always the same question.
I think that's an important distinction. Parents naturally think about employment, finances, or relationships, but the court is looking at the child's overall situation.
Exactly. The court's responsibility is to consider the child's best interests, and that requires looking at the entire picture.
Do you find that communication between parents makes a difference?
It often does. Parents don't have to agree on everything. In fact, many don't. But respectful communication can make resolving disagreements much easier. When parents keep each other informed and discuss concerns early, they're sometimes able to avoid unnecessary conflict.
I imagine surprises don't usually help.
That's true. Imagine learning that your co-parent has already accepted a job, rented a home in another city, enrolled the child in a new school, and packed the moving truck before ever having a conversation with you. Even if the move has legitimate reasons behind it, that approach can create mistrust and make an already difficult situation even more emotional.
One thing I've noticed from reading comments online is that parents sometimes become so focused on each other that the child almost disappears from the conversation.
Unfortunately, that can happen. It's understandable that parents have strong feelings during custody disputes, but it's important to remember that children are experiencing the changes too. They may be worried about changing schools, leaving friends, living farther from one parent, or simply adjusting to a new routine. Keeping the child's needs at the center of the conversation often leads to better long-term decisions.
Children don't always express those feelings the same way adults do.
That's correct. Some children openly share their concerns. Others become quiet or withdrawn. Some express stress through changes in behavior or school performance. Every child responds differently.
If someone is considering relocating 6 months or even a year from now, what advice would you give them?
Start planning early. Think through the practical issues. How will transportation work? What will holidays look like? How will the child maintain a meaningful relationship with both parents? What school options are available? How will extracurricular activities be affected? The more carefully these questions are considered in advance, the smoother the transition may be.
So don't just focus on the moving truck. Focus on the child's entire life after the move.
Exactly. Moving is one day. Parenting continues for years.
Attorney Davis, if a parent watching today is facing a possible move and feels overwhelmed, maybe they're excited about a new opportunity, but also worried about how it will affect their child, what would you want them to remember?
I'd encourage them to slow down and gather information before making major decisions. Relocating with a child can affect many areas of family life. Taking time to understand the legal process, communicate when possible, and carefully evaluate the child's needs can help parents make more informed decisions. Every family's circumstances are different. That's why it's important to avoid comparing your situation to stories you read online or advice given to someone else. The facts matter.
That's something we've talked about in every episode. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all answer in family law.
There isn't. The law is applied to individual facts, and those facts can vary greatly from one family to another.
Attorney Davis, we've now covered child support, child custody, and move-away cases. The questions from viewers just keep coming. Some of the topics people are asking about include grandparents' rights, parenting plans, contempt of court, visitation problems, modifying custody orders, domestic violence in custody, emergency custody requests, mediation, father's rights, paternity cases. It sounds like we have plenty to discuss in future episodes.
We certainly do. Family law touches many aspects of people's lives, and our goal is to help viewers better understand the legal process. The more informed people are, the more prepared they can be when facing important family decisions.
Attorney Davis, thank you again for another thoughtful discussion. I think today's episode helped viewers understand that move-away cases aren't simply about geography. They're about balancing opportunities, responsibilities, and most importantly, what's in the child's best interests.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone who joined us today. We hope these conversations make California family law easier to understand and encourage people to approach these issues with careful planning and thoughtful decision-making. As always, today's discussion has been for educational purposes only. Nothing we've discussed should be considered legal advice for your individual situation. And watching this program does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have questions about your own family law matter, it's important to consult with a qualified attorney who can evaluate your specific circumstances. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the channel, share this video with friends or family who may find it helpful, and leave a comment below with topics you'd like us to discuss in future family law episodes. I'm attorney Vincent W. Davis. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us. I always enjoy bringing your questions to Attorney Davis because so many viewers are facing situations that feel confusing or overwhelming. If today's discussion answered one of your questions, let us know in the comments. And if there's another family law topic you'd like us to cover, send it our way. We may feature it in a future episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and thanks for watching.